Do you know what a harlequin is? A harlequin.
Well, it's a mute character in traditional pantomime. They typically have like a mask and a diamond pattern costume of some kind. Or in a different definition that's less used, it's like a small duck, kind of inhabit fast-flowing streams in the Arctic. They have gray and blue plumage.
I was trying to do an opening bit by quoting the movie first, and you just totally cut me off. I wasn't even listening to what the actual definition of a harlequin is. I was trying to just quote the movie to make the intro.
Well, it's a mute character in traditional pantomime.
Birds of prey, people.
And the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
So I know a lot of people were concerned because this was a movie where the review embargo, they said they can't put any official reviews out till the day before the movie is released. And usually that is a terrible warning sign. I still held out faith. If you watched any of our countless trailer reactions for this film, I was like, you know what? I know a lot of people are not super hyped about this, but I have a lot of faith in it. I'm not just saying it to defend my own anticipation ego. There's been plenty of times where I'm like, you know what? I was wrong. Everything I had faith in, I was totally wrong about. I'm going to be blunt. I loved the hell out of this movie. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm like, that's all I said. I really had a great time. I thought it was a total blast. Do I have like a couple of little issues here and there? Sure, we'll go into them. They're very minor, but for the most part, I thought this was a fantabulous time.
Yeah, likewise. I had a great time. I had a blast and a half. Yeah, it was just as colorful and bonkers, filled with personality as I hoped it would be.
Also, yeah, I mean, John and I are wearing these clothes, and I wanted to shout these guys out right away.
I mean, if you've been on the internet for any length of time, you know Rooster Teeth. You've seen Red versus Blue. They have a whole buttload of other content.
And they send us this like giant ass box of stuff.
They're getting into merch, people.
So roll that photo shoot John and I did. So we got early access to these clothes.
So yeah, keep your eye on Rooster Teeth, though.
That's right. Build a bit of a YouTube career and Rooster Teeth might notice you. Thank you, Rooster Teeth, for sending this over. Yeah. You'll see us wearing these clothes a lot throughout the remainder of this channel, that's for sure. All right, so the plot for this movie is not exactly all that difficult to follow. It's actually a really simple plot. What makes it special and unique is really its execution. After watching the movie, I get why they might have had some difficulty conveying what the movie's actually about, because it's kind of about like a couple of things going on all at once, but really it's simple. Harley Quinn has broken up with the Joker. She's had a lot of immunity in the criminal underworld because she is the girlfriend to the Joker. Now that she is on her own, there's a lot of people after her. Now that's communicated in the trailer. There's also this other plot. The main villains, they're all looking for a specific diamond, right? And then somehow from the Birds of Prey characters, Harley Quinn, Cassandra Cain, they're all getting involved, and it's all about the diamond, and they're all trying to avoid being eliminated by Black Mask Roman Sionis, played by Ewan McGregor. So for starters, I think the whole cast in this movie is wonderful. This really is more Harley Quinn's movie than anyone else's. With that being said, one of my concerns was, will the Birds of Prey shine in this film? And I thought the whole ensemble was great. Harley Quinn is most certainly the lead, and she is hilarious in this movie. She had me cracking up from beginning to end. She's kind of like taking on a bit of a, what I can only describe as a Jack Sparrow-like role, where there's a lot of like quirky, coincidental things that go on with her. There's Jack Sparrow in Pirates 1, and there's Jack Sparrow in the last Pirates movie. And this is like Pirates 1 Jack Sparrow to me, where it's still good. It's still great. Her action scenes are wonderful, and the evolution of her character is great. So much of the emotional depth provided by her, but the comedic sensibility she provides are so on point. I loved her in it.
It's just a character it seems like she was born to play. She's so natural, and it seems like she's having so much fun, but not too much fun to the point where it's taking away from the role. Like it really does seem like she's 100% invested in Harley Quinn.
Easily, probably the equal performer or second greatest performer in the film is Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. And I gotta say that if you are a major Black Mask fan, I can see how this performance could upset you, because it's definitely a lot more eccentric, quirky, childish, a little flamboyant, you know.
Kind of like a better version of what happened to Lex Luthor almost.
I thought Ewan McGregor was excellent. He's not exactly scary in the film, which I could see being an issue. Kind of more of the threatening, sadistic elements went more to Chris Messina as Victor Zsasz, and him and Ewan McGregor have great chemistry in the film. But Ewan McGregor, regardless, even if he's not scary, he is consistently engaging. And while he pretty much steals every scene he's in, he's not necessarily stealing the spotlight, if that makes sense. He's still in the scene with everyone else, and he still helps elevate the other performers around him.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, from what, I'm not a Black Mask expert, I was sitting there going, I feel like I should fear this guy more than I do. But yeah, I mean, Ewan McGregor's performance is great, and I feel like any of the menace that Black Mask was missing, at least in terms of the overall movie, gets made up for well with Victor Zsasz, who Chris Messina, I thought, did a terrific job in that role.
I mean, I love Anthony Carrigan on the Gotham show as Victor Zsasz. This is a totally different kind of portrayal. This is a much more evil, sick, twisted, sadistic human being.
Yeah. You're like, every time he's on screen, you're just like, something's wrong with this guy.
And then in terms of the other Birds of Prey players, my personal favorite one out of them, I'm going to butcher her name, Journey Smollett-Bell. She plays Dinah Lance, a.k.a. Black Canary in the movie. She's wonderful. You really feel the character's history. All the women in the film are tough, badass ladies, but she brings a certain level of weight to the role that is different than the other characters. I just think the writing for her was a little bit better than the other two. That's not to say the writing for the other two were bad. I just was more gravitated towards her. And I think the movie kind of wants you to gravitate more towards her than the others.
Well, yeah, of all the ensemble, maybe arguably, aside from Rosie Perez, she is the one who you spend the most time with and you get to know on the most personal level. I feel like she and Cassandra Cain have some similar background stuff, but yeah, especially in terms of a character you can sympathize with who's in a bad situation, who doesn't have a lot of power in that situation, but is trying to stick to some kind of moral code. I thought she did a terrific job, and I really liked the arc that they gave her.
And Rosie Perez, I thought might be like funny in the movie. She's not.
She's a badass.
The joke about her is she's like a cop from the 80s.
Yeah.
And they really stick to that. But she's not a joke character. When I heard that line, I thought they were going to do something where they're making fun of her character for feeling like she's from the 80s. And while they acknowledge that, she's actually probably the most dramatic of them. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character is Huntress. There was a point in the film where I was thinking, is she going to be like totally left out of this film? It's a while before you really get to spend some screen time with her. It wasn't until like the last 10 minutes of her scenes where I finally started to get the humor behind her character, because there's a couple of moments in the trailer when you're seeing them all united, all the Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn are united at one point. There's a couple of lines that they give Mary Elizabeth Winstead where the humor felt off and flat, and I was like, wait a minute, did they rewrite or reshoot some stuff? Because there's some, when she's just being like serious assassin character, she's very believable. And then there were some humorous parts that didn't really hit the mark for me, but then eventually I was like, oh, never mind. I get it now, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a line everyone will have to ride a little bit with this film. That line between realistic within the realm of the world, cartooniness versus cartooniness. And luckily, I think the movie does a good job of keeping it cartoony within its limitations. But yeah, there are a couple moments there that seem to get jokey in a way that it wasn't bad, but yeah, you could just be like, okay, there's a joke there.
Yeah, there was only in the finale, actually, when that kind of bothered me. Because the rest of the film, honestly, from beginning to end, I was smiling throughout most of this movie. I was cracking up a lot because this movie is eccentric. It is wild. It is meta.
Energetic.
It's got a very different kind of structure because you're telling this specifically from Harley Quinn's perspective, her unique choice of how to narrate this tale. And sometimes she's like, oh, I forget facts, so let's rewind and backtrack a little bit. So with that in mind, what Kathy Ann did, working with her cinematographer especially, she's brought a very vibrant, colorful film to life. In the first act, there's some minor pacing issues that I do have because it starts off very kinetic. It starts off very fast, and I'm smiling from ear to ear. And then the movie needs to, like, it needs to slow down at some point and start telling us, like, what the story is about and introduce the other characters, because there's the Harley Quinn world. The other characters don't have the same kind of mindset she has. Yeah. So when you're cutting to the other characters and you got to get to know them, the movie does slow down. The reason why I say it's a minor issue, because even though at first I was like, okay, I need to readjust a little bit here, the scenes are essential. They're all important scenes to keep the movie moving. They're not, like, we don't need this, cut it out, this is boring. There are scenes that need to slow down for a purpose.
It reminded me of Deadpool a bit in the way that it moves around its story and the way the narration plays into that. It's hard not to talk about Suicide Squad when you mention this movie because it does kind of shoot out of it. But I thought that they took all of the stylistic earmarks and did them better here because it has all that kinesis and it has the sort of revolving door of pop songs and stuff like that. But it all feels really natural. And yeah, you have Harley Quinn, who is the unreliable narrator, as we've been saying a lot, but in a very useful and a very fun way that breaks the movie up into what feels like comic book-esque chunks. Not to say that it's choppy or anything like that. And there's even some 2D animation in here, which just took me back and that made me happy because, you know, Harley Quinn came from the cartoon, so I thought that was kind of a nice nod.
Yeah. I love those stylish touches when a director knows how to do it properly, how they mess around with the text that are on screen when the movie decides to freeze frame and have a lot of fun with the visual touches it's putting on screen to convey some information. I think a lot of people have said that this is the movie that Suicide Squad ought to have been. Yeah, I agree with that, but I think it's so much more than that. I don't love it just because it's better than Suicide Squad. Like, I wasn't even really thinking about Suicide Squad watching this, even though there are some specific mentions. This really feels like its own thing. The emotional beats really do hit. You really get time to hang out with the characters. I think the one comparison I can make is Suicide Squad. You can feel rewrites. You can feel rushed. You can feel reshoots. And this movie felt focused. Despite how fast-paced it was, despite how energetic it was, it felt like it knew exactly what it wanted to be, exactly what it wanted to do. And I had a great time. I think the action in it is some of the best out of this DC universe.
Oh, yeah. Like, it got audible noises out of me. I was very reactive.
A lot of the theater. I mean, it's not as gory as some people might have made you think it would be, but there are some bone-crunching moments that make you go, woo!
Yeah, totally. And just some beautiful action shots, you know, some beautiful slow-mo, some beautiful set pieces.
It looked like a lot of the actors really trained a lot for this movie because there's some one-take shots in here and shots where it's clearly Margot Robbie. I don't know if they ever like CGI'd her face onto a stunt double or whatever. I thought it looked real and it looked like it was really the actors doing it. So hell yeah.
Even if I'm sure there are stunt doubles in the mix, but yeah, it seemed like they went out of their way to show. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I think, lately has been doing this in a lot of her stuff. But yeah, that they really threw down on the training and can fight so that it makes it that much more believable.
Yeah.
In fact, the only thing that ever took me out of a fight sequence was just that thing of like, there are a bunch of dudes in here. I feel like more of them would be attacking. But,
yeah, especially after watching some Corridor Crew stuntmen react videos, I would sometimes look at the other stunt performers in the background going, they're waiting.
They're doing the stunt jiggle.
They're filling space so they can get hit. And also, the actress who played Cassandra Cain, Ella J. Basco, the way how she had to balance this child who grows up in a domestically violent home with
being a pickpocket
and then having this like sarcastic sense of humor to repress it all. She's that character who is learning to trust. And I thought she did an excellent job. Her and Margot Robbie have incredible chemistry in this film. That was some of the highlights of the movie to me, was them hanging out together. I won't go into specifics as to why, but them hanging out together was some of my favorite parts of this film.
Yeah, and I like the way she played the character, and I like the way the character was written because it was never too cheeky. It was never too like, look at this precocious kid. You know, it felt of the world, and it felt like the right size. And generally, I mean, if you want to talk about like themes underneath, I think it's nice that they had so many characters who all come from different backgrounds teaming up. I just noticed that this morning. An older character, you've got a younger character, you've got everybody from privilege to poverty. They're all coming together for a common goal. And so if you want to talk about like feminist themes and make everybody mad, I thought that was a nice little sophisticated nugget that the movie doesn't, again, go out of its way to be like, hey, we're doing this.
Well, the characters, but even to an external extent, like even with Ewan McGregor's Black Mask character, they're all about trying to prove themselves and get out of someone else's shadow. For the most part, and you know, primarily with the main female, not all of them, but most of them are in the shadow of a man, and they don't say that. They're not like it's the man, you know. They don't say that, but the character whose shadow they're in is of the man, but it feels appropriate, and it doesn't feel like they're in my face trying to push an agenda. And I think the reason why that's done so well is because you got a great female director here.
And I think
and a female writer too. You know?
And Margot Robbie, I mean, like, I don't know exactly the extent of her involvement production wise, but she seems like she has a say and a pretty good sense when she picks her projects. And so I got to imagine that that's also part of, you know, her involvement. We're going to make this progressive, but in a way that feels integrated and that isn't like a lot of our blockbusters are now.
And honestly, every concern that I might have expressed in those trailer reactions distractions are all put to rest. There are times where I'd be concerned of the whole thing with Harley Quinn saying she's going to make a name for herself and break out of the identity of the Joker. And I'm like, but when you keep bringing up the Joker, I just reminded of the Joker. Weirdly, even though that's a prevalent thing throughout this whole film, I didn't miss the Joker at all. I thought I'm totally cool with just a Harley Quinn movie.
Yeah. And they do a great job with that too, because it starts out simply enough with just like she's grieving and she acts out, and then she just got to deal with that.
Yeah.
And you don't even miss the Joker throughout it. Like his presence is felt enough just because of how much of a legend he is. You know?
I love what DC's been doing. They've been on a solid track record. Aquaman, Shazam, Joker. Since they've been really refocusing what they want to do and taking bold steps with having 2 DC movies in a row that are R-rated. Hell yeah. I love everything they've been doing. I can tell this movie won't be for everyone. It's very matter of fact. There are some people in the theater who we're not having it. There are some people like us who are clearly in love with it. Yeah. And I like that. That shows kind of the bold direction of what they're doing, is that it's not going to be for everyone. When they were trying to make something for everyone, it wasn't satisfying most people. And now you got this direction. Guys, did you see Birds of Prey? What did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Leave a comment down below. Do you want to see a Birds of Prey solo movie with just the Birds of Prey themselves? Leave a comment below. Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. And thank you, Rooster Teeth, again for all these goodies.